you all to the 14th session of Book Talks being conducted by the Department of English of St. Joseph's College, Devgiri. We started off this initiative as a mere pastime activity to make effective use of our lockdown. We commenced it with a discussion on Homo sapiens by one of our professors. But since then, Book Talk has become a huge success, crossing all our expectations. We had the opportunity to come across a wide variety of books from all the genres and to interact with some of the best speakers and scholars of our nation. Today, yet again, we are privileged to have one of the renowned academic of our country, Dr. George Athappilly CMI. Sir has done his PhD in Information Communication Engineering under the guidance of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Sir had the rare privilege of having the country's first citizen as his doctoral guide. Sir has worked as a professor in MIT, Anna University, Christ University, Bangalore, Paloti College of Engineering, Nagpur. They say when you choose to act out of kindness, compassion, and love, you're already aligned with your true purpose. I must say, we have an apt example with us today. Sir has done his research in enhancing the capability of mentally challenged children using appropriate technologies. Sir has been part of innovative projects aimed at enhancing the mental abilities of differently able students through stimulation of brain cells. Today, Sir will be introducing the book Phantoms in the Brain, Human Nature and Architecture of the Mind, written by V.S. Ramachandran. The book has detailed explanation on the intricacies of our brain. On behalf of the department, I wholeheartedly invite you, sir, to this session. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. And at the outset, let me thank Brother Ajit for having invited me for this talk. And now you say this is a book talk, and I have a doubt whether it will go to an attitude talk or not. Anyhow, your attitude determines your altitude. That is how it is. Shall I go for a presentation? I'm going to present my, okay, your entire screen. Yes. Yes. From The Phantoms in the Brain is the book written by V. Ramachandran, known as the Marco Polo of Brain. I had the rare opportunity of meeting him twice, in Delhi once and in Chennai the other time. Now, let me just situate myself as to who am I talking to. Initially, I thought I was going to talk to some neurologists or people who are interested in psychology and medicine and so on. And later I knew it was people who are doing their English literature studies. And when I explored the reason why they have gone to this, they said they wanted to expand the expanses of their horizon of knowledge. That means they are really open-minded, generous, and true to their brains. And therefore, I was really thrilled to talk on this subject. I say, Madam Pottuvanullori Irikada. And I had asked this question, are there people who are really intellectually generous and broad-hearted, or people like this? But then brother, generous, genius, intelligent, knowledge-seeking people. My feeling is that Matam has become a Madam now, Unmadam, and a Madam Potan Vembi nikkunnavarana palappozhum Madangal. And if there is anyone like that, please forgive me. Madam Potti Palthulikkanullavarodu njan samsarikkanilla. Was told that the audience are great thinkers, artists, and geniuses. And my talk is not for anybody else. Here is our man, Dr. V.S. Ramachandran. He had been looking at the brain through the holes of the brain. He was studying the brain through the loopholes or holes of the brain, the defects of the brain. And he found the brain to be something like this. But this is not exactly the finding of Dr. Ramachandran, but this had been there. And the medical people, especially the neurologists, they call this as the homunculus of the brain. If you look at this part, do you see the arrow, mouse cursor there?
Yes, sir.
I hope it is there. Okay. Now, this brain has got two strips of brain matter. The front strip is called the motor homunculus, and the back strip is called the sensory homunculus. And this part is cut across and shown like this. And you can see the various parts of our body are represented in these two strips, sensory strip and the motor strip of the brain like this. And this picture is generally called as the homunculus, sensory homunculus and the motor homunculus. Now, Dr. Ramachandran was studying this brain and he found certain interesting things. And the most important thing is the human being is almost like this. From the part of the sensory and the motor homunculus, human being is like this in the sense he is mainly a head, face, tongue, and palms. If you look at the other beings like rabbits, cats, monkeys, and humans, there is an evolution towards this human being like this. And coming to the human being, it is the tongue and the thumb, most importantly. And this variation is a result of the evolution through the time, human brain's evolution. Tongue, palm, face, and these parts in the brain are represented very hugely in the case of human beings. And therefore, we human beings who think will make a great thinking brain along the way and will churn out a gush of or a gust of ideas, newness and creativity. And that is a human being for. The palm and the tongue. Therefore, the capabilities that human beings have achieved allows him to think more and more. And that in turn makes the brain bigger and bigger, greater and greater, and thinking is gushed out of human beings. And if I look at this book, my feeling is that Dr. Ramachandran is now like the sound of the one crying from within the skull, speaking for the brain, the brain saying, release me, please, set me free. Presently, the brain is, as the physical condition is, it is imprisoned, fettered under the skull. That is right. Physically, it is fettered and imprisoned. But actually, by its performance, it should not have been imprisoned. But it seems it is being imprisoned, not allowed to perform. And Dr. Ramachandran is possibly requesting everyone, please set our brains free. Our brain is actually a thing which is not a rigid thing. It is a very plastic, dynamic thing which adjusts to the situations, and according to the experiences, it makes its own images, makes its own capabilities. Say, for example, I'm not going to explain the picture. It says, increase the use of the selected fingers or increase the use of any part of our body will create a more increased cortical representation. And the other way around, it is also possible that when you constrict or restrain your body parts, accordingly, within the brain, there will be a constriction of the brain parts. So brain is a flexible, fantastic reality which adjusts to what is happening around it. And through our body, through our behavior, we can tame the brain, we can grow the brain, we can release the brain. A bus conductor, because he is calculating very quickly in the bus, a grocery shopkeeper or a typist and circus expert, they are all training their brain so that the concerned part of their brain is becoming more excellent and efficient. A teacher who teaches the same subject becomes an expert in that, because profuse use of some things will increase the cortical representation and the efficiency of the brain in that field. This is our brain. It is a very dynamic reality. The other way around, if you don't use our capabilities or parts of the body, accordingly, the brain will get shrunk or performing badly. The magical and the scientific powers of our brain are opened up before us like a detective revealing the tangled knots of a sensitive criminal case. This is what Dr. Ramachandran is doing through this book, Phantoms in the Brain. The brain and its astounding and amazing, stupendous, breathtaking nature is revealed before us, as if we are looking through a magnifying glass. Brain is a very special organ having two hemispheres, right and the left. Interestingly, there is nothing right in the left and nothing left in the right. There is nothing left in the right. Or I don't know, in the present situation, it is almost like there is nothing left in the entire skull. Because it appears like that, even though the technology has boomed up, the brain is shut up. There is nothing left, and nobody is allowed to think. This seems to be the approach these days. Having these two parts of the brain together, this brain is a spectacular, fantastic, marvelous organ. Now, I'm going to prove the spectacular aspect of this brain by asking you some questions. Can I ask you questions? Okay, let me ask you a question. Why is it that a cat on entering a dark room looks to one side and then to the other side? Why is it that, or why is it that a cat on entering a dark room looks to one side and then to the other side? Any answer? Are you allowed to answer? Shall I expect for an answer? Do you all hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. Is there any answer for this? Why does a cat on entering a dark room looks to one side and then to the other side? Maybe you are taking time, and because I do not have a lot of time allowed, I am going to give the answer. A cat on entering a dark room looks to one side and then to the other side because it cannot look to both sides simultaneously. It looks to one side and then to the other side. Our brain will have to think is slightly different. Let me ask one more question. Everest and no mountain, which is taller? Everest and no mountain, which is taller? No answer?
No mountain, sir.
Why? Why no mountain?
Because we don't have a concept of height for no mountain. So.
Okay. I'm happy that you are responding and you are trying to give an answer. You are using your brain. That much is really great. But an answer can be slightly different. I'm going to give the answer. No mountain is the answer. That part is right. The why of it is possibly to be corrected. No mountain is taller than Everest. Did you get it? No mountain is taller than Everest. And that is what I learned in first standard onwards. No mountain is taller than Everest. No mountain is taller than Everest. Do you agree with that or not? No mountain is taller than Everest. That is a fact. No mountain
Yes, yes, sir.
no mountain is taller than Everest. Okay, it takes some time for us, for the brain to work and find it out. And my final question is this. Draw a rectangle with two straight lines. Just with two straight lines. Only with the two straight lines. Can you do that? Can you draw a rectangle with only two straight lines? With only two straight, because your video cannot be shared right now, you may not be able to show me that, but if somebody can explain how can that be done, I'll be happy. But because this is taking time and I am given only 30 minutes, I'm not actually spending time on this. I'm going to give you the answer. Okay. And if you don't understand, please let me know. Do you understand the answer? Do you understand the answer? I think people are not answering. Are you afraid of answering? Are you sure of this answer? Draw a rectangle with only two straight lines. Are you getting it? Yes or no?
Yes, Father. Yes, Father. Yes, Father.
I am afraid. I'm afraid of your answers. I'm going to make the answer more clear. And the answer is this. A rectangle with the two straight lines, only two straight lines, just with the two straight lines, only two straight lines, a rectangle with the two straight lines. Do you get the answer? Do you get the answer? And this is lateral thinking. This is lateral thinking. This is out of the box thinking. And from the part of the brain, it is bilateral thinking. It's not that we think only along the ways which we have thought so far. There may be different ways of thinking. But true, because the brain needs that. For the brain, it is not just a lump of mass, but it is a creative thing, dynamic thing, making new ideas. And this is the brain's way, a new way of thinking, always finding out new ways of understanding. Unfortunately, but that is not the way it is now seen in the present world. I'm just going to introduce a concept called Phantom Lymph. There was a man whose hand got amputated. Hello? Okay. A hand got amputated. But even after the amputation, he began to feel pain on his amputated hand. And he felt like that his hand is still moving around. He was able to use this hand. Do you have an explanation for this? Do you want to just rubbish it as an imagination of this patient? Actually, the surgeon who did this thought that he made a mistake while he was actually suturing. Possibly some of the nerves got intertwined, and therefore he is getting pain from the amputated hand. And therefore the surgeon got his cut opened again and restructured it. All the nerves were properly alienated and then sutured again. But of no good, he began to feel the same pain again. He was really feeling the hand was with him and the pain on the hand. Sometimes this hand gets a clenching action. He is not able to get rid of this clenching action and so on. And to his great surprise, it was found that whenever anyone touched on his face or when somebody touched on his shoulder, he felt the pain or the feeling on the amputated hand. Do you have an explanation for this? Anyone? Doctors had no explanation till recently.
His nervous system is very strong.
That's right. Therefore, the nervous system is very strong. He is not ready to accept the fact that this hand has not gone. Is it?
Maybe a supply of sensation is still felt
Okay.
because of.
I'm very happy that you are trying to answer. I do not know what is your background, but you are trying to answer. That is really great. Now, let me say, if it is a case of nervous system being very, very strong, why is it that he should have a sensation on his face? On his shoulder, we can understand. Whenever you touch the shoulder, he feels as if his arm and the palm and the fingers are touched. But on the face, and that is very curious. He has found out a reason why it is so. That is, I mean, this is the way it was. And he found out the reason for this, and it is like this. I had shown you the homunculus, sensory homunculus. And in the sensory homunculus, we can see the face is represented at this place of the brain, and the hand is represented at this place, palm is here, and this part is cut off. And when this is cut off, the remaining parts, the adjoining parts, they understand that there is no activity on this side. There is no activity, and therefore they thought, we will invade this place. We will invade these quiet areas. And therefore they invaded. And that is how on the face, and at the stump of the hand, he got the sensations. When the face neurons invaded to this area, whenever there is a sensation in this face, it appeared like a sensation on the hand. Okay. And this explains the concept called foot fetish. I hope you understand it. What will happen if a leg is amputated? I am not answering the question right now. Our brain inverts because it is a very dynamic reality. Our neurons invade the quiet areas. And by the same reason, whenever we are activating the brain cells, they become more and more expert. They achieve expertise. Our brain is an infinite, uncontainable, boiling cauldron of ideas which can create and throw out ideas. And the infinity of the brain. I wanted to actually ask a question, but I see we don't have any time at all left. And therefore, I am coming to the question. What lies in front of you and what lies behind you pales in comparison with what is inside of you. What is inside of you is a very great reality. Here is a story which I am not going to say. We don't have time. I am happy of asking a question. Which infinity is bigger? Option A, infinity. Option B, infinity plus infinity. Option C, infinity square. And option D, infinity to the power infinity. Which infinity is bigger? A, B, C, D. Which infinity is bigger?
Fourth one, option D.
Option D is bigger. I am happy that common sense says option D should be the biggest infinity. But at the same time, mathematics says one infinity cannot be bigger than another infinity, because infinity is the biggest and the biggest amount that you can think of. So this is actually a sort of a contradiction, bigger infinity, and this is almost inapplicable. Whereas what I wanted to say is human being is an infinity, is a very great infinity, in fact. I'm just saying a little of mathematics. Say if there are two switches, it can make 4 combinations of each one being a plus or 0 or 1. 0, 0 is a 0, 0, 1 is a 1, and so on. There, with two switches, two possibilities, you can have 4 different combinations. Whereas if there are 3 switches having an on or off possibility, you can have 7 or 8 total different combinations. Going along this way, with the 10 switches, you can have 1,000 approximately possibilities. Whereas if it is 20 switches, you can have 1 crore different possibilities. If it is 30, it is 1 billion different possibilities. Whereas our brain is having 100 billion neurons, and each neuron is having approximately 1,000 synapses or connections, which means our possibility inside is like this: 2 raised to 100,000 billion. 2 raised to 100,000 billion is a completely unimaginable infinite to the power infinite possibility, which means we are actually a very, very high infinity. Inside us, it is an infinity. God created man in his own image and likeness. That is true. Aham Brahmasmi and Tatsumasi. That is also true. And we are like plugged in volcano. Inside it is completely active, completely dynamic. It is actually churning out ideas. As the Tamil song goes, Puyale, Puyale, Pottivacha Puyale. We are all tornadoes kept shut. If this tornado is left open, it is a tremendous force. Dr. Kalam, when we were reading on the complexity of the brain, suddenly said, Father, now do you believe in God? Meaning, fantastic, so complex, so infinite is the possibility in the brain. And we are like ghosts guarding the great treasure that is inside us, the brain. I leave this. I wanted to show you certain other though human brain is a big infinite capability, all through these years, if we see during the past 2,000 years of existence, human being is not actually bringing out a lot of great things. We are all subdued, blocked, and restrained, imprisoned realities. We were imaginative and creative during our childhood, but somehow it is all blocked. It is as if like this, our brains are torn and blocked. I am actually trying to explain at least one. Now, I had prepared a few. There was a peculiar case called Capgras Syndrome, which is explained in Dr. Ramachandran's book. Capgras, this man, I mean, a youth, an adult, he met with an accident, and after the accident, he could come out of the accident and it became almost normal. But when he finds his parents, he was not able to recognize the parents. He finds his other friends, he is able to recognize them. For all other intellectual capabilities, he was completely normal. But his father and mother, he was not able to recognize. He will say they are looking like father and mother, imposters. And that is the Capgras Syndrome. And in order to understand this one, Freudian theory was one, and I will possibly show that. But this one conducted an experiment like this, Galvanic skin response experiment. And it is like this. His father and mother's photos, along with many other photos, were shown to him. And it was asked, is galvanic skin response, which is nothing but an electrical pulse, which could be recorded if there is a pulse. And it went like this. So a photo like this was shown, there was a galvanic response. Another photo was shown, okay, there was a galvanic response. Another photo, there is no response. Another one, there is a response. This one, no response. Another one, no response. Yes, there is a response. And then no response. No response. There is a response. Response. No response. There is a response. This was it. There is absolutely no response in this case. And this was the case reported from this patient. And the Freudian explanation for this was, I mean, wherever there was a galvanic response, it was actually his own parents. And whenever the other people's photos were shown, there was absolutely no response. Freudian interpretation for this illness was like this. Oedipus complex, sexual attraction to the opposite parent in the beginning itself, and the later stages, his cortex grew and inhibited this urge. But during this accident, his inhibitive brain part was broken off, and therefore his inhibition is gone. And whenever he finds his parents, he still is having this sexual attraction. And at the same time, he was not able to reconcile with this reality that this one and the sexual attraction. Therefore, he began to say, no, this one only looks like as my father or mother. This was the Freudian example, Freudian explanation, which the neurologists were following. But Dr. Ramachandran thought in a different way, and he asked these questions. If that is the case, if this is the case, Dr. Ramachandran asked this question. He fails to identify his father too, which means he may be a homosexual. Inherently, human beings are homosexual. Is it so? If this boy failed to identify the mother, it is one. But if he fails to identify the father, then that is a inherent homosexuality. And he fails to identify his dear pets also. That was something which he found out. His very close dear pet, he was not able to identify. And therefore, he was asking this question, is it that everybody is inherently bestial? Therefore, he finally thought about it, did experiments, and found out this answer for the question. Whenever we see something that goes into the various parts of the brain, and at the end, you will have one area of the brain called the fusiform gyrus, which will be actually identifying this person or identifying this object, and then it will send a response to the amygdala, hippocampus, and olfactory bulb, generally called as the limbic system. And it is the limbic system which gives an emotional interpretation to this object that is seen. And Dr. Ramachandran finally identified that, I mean, by the way, this man was able to identify his parents when the parents made a phone call. When the parents were talking to him, he was able to identify because, I mean, Freud was not able to explain this concept, but this one was explaining it like his connection of the brain from the fusiform gyrus to the limbic system was knocked off by the accident, whereas the final stages of the audio processing area of the brain connecting to the limbic system was intact. And therefore, when audio signals were there, he was able to identify his father and mother. When the visual signals were there, this identification to the emotional cortex was not there. And therefore, he began to say, these are impostures. So now, Dr. Ramachandran was ready to ask different questions, was ready to think in a completely different fashion from the way the tradition was thinking of. And therefore, he could get answers. Here is another question, another experiment we can see. Here, he says yes. Do you see a ball? He says yes. And then, do you see a ball? He says yes. See a ball? he says nothing. And then on the right side, he says yes. Now he says nothing. And the right side, he says yes. Ball on the left side, he says nothing. Now, can you explain why he sees something on the right side, does not see anything on the left side? Maybe we will say he is left side blind. That is the way we will try to explain it. But there is another curious experiment that is described in the same text. He says, to the same man, it was asked like this. Is it vertical or horizontal? He said vertical. Now, asked, is this vertical or horizontal? He said, yes, vertical. That is understandable. Vertical or horizontal? He said horizontal. This is that is horizontal. Now he says it is vertical. And then he says vertical. Says vertical. He says it is horizontal. Can you explain why? He does not. At the same time, you ask him, do you see anything on the left side? He says no. Do you see on the left side? No. But is it vertical or horizontal? He says yes. And this is a speciality of our brain. And this is because that pathway of the brain, which is giving you the concept of consciousness, is broken off. Whereas that pathway of the brain which calculates and decides this is vertical or horizontal is intact. And therefore, he is able to say this is vertical. But if you ask, do you see? He does not see. There were similar cases like a person says he does not see anything. But at the same time, when he was asked to hand over, receive a cover and put it in the post box, he accurately accepted the cover and put it in the post box. And if you ask him, do you see the cover? He says he does not see the cover. And this is highly possible. Our brain has got sometimes some holes, some defects, maybe because of the accident or something like that. And at the end of the day, what happens is you are not conscious of things, but you are able to do things. You are able to take decisions, but you are not able to be conscious of it. And a very simple example for this will be our somnambulism. You walk and do things in sleep, but you are not aware that you are doing that. And here is one more case. Oh, by the way, the time is up. The time is up. I'm not able to say anything at all. Dr. Ramachandran is actually presenting the wonderful nature of our brain. Here, under some magnetic stimulation, a patient or a child is drawing things in a much better, enlightened way, whereas in a non-stimulated environment, non-magnetically stimulated environment, his drawing capabilities are less. I mean to say, under certain stimulated environments, our brain works better. And the brain is an organ which can work wonders under stimulation or under special circumstances. And we should allow our ideas to get stimulated. We should allow our brain to get stimulated. And in that case, we can work wonders. Else, if we are trying to block it, I say presently, most of the teachers, okay, I leave it. Let me say, our brains are put into imprisonment. Who is actually putting the brain of the human beings fettered? If I ask this question, my answer will be parents who started. Professors take it up. Professors, I am also a professor. Please forgive me. Professors take it up. And professors do it like this. Do not reinvent the wheel. Professors, they cover the portions Instead of uncovering the topics and portions, professors try to cover all the portions, cover up all the loopholes. And politicians love and live on it, keeping the brains ignorant. And finally, the culmination of this imprisonment of the brain is done by the clerics. And they will say, I mean, this is an example from Catholic Church. They imprisoned Galileo, Copernicus, and others. As they say, from 200 BC onwards, the geocentrism gave way to heliocentrism, but Church successfully covered it up till 16th century. And that way, the brain's capabilities were hushed up. The clerics will say, do not think what I say is the last word. Should not listen to anybody else. I am the last one word. And this is the way the clerics, the priests, or the so-called fanatic religious people hush up and shut up the brain. Because I do not have time, I'm not going to dwell anything more on this. Let me just straight away go to the last slide saying, this is 24. Maybe I would say just discussion and questions because our time is up. Okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. It was indeed a really informative session. Now we are open for questions. If any of you have any questions, you may unmute yourself and ask. So I'll be kindly answering those.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening, Father.
Good
So
evening.
first of all, I must say it was a very intriguing session, and it was really a pleasure listening to you. So thank you so much for unraveling this masterpiece of a book from your perspective. So what I'd love to ask you is that what does it really mean when you say that brains have plasticity? Like since you also mentioned about
brain has got the plasticity.
Yeah.
Yes, brain adjusts. Say one simple example is the same phantoms in the brain. As I said, when a hand is cut off, what is happening is the nearby areas try to invade and sometimes take up the job of that part of the brain. And that is the flexibility and the pliability of the brain. Say, for example, in some cases, your one side is paralyzed. When one side is paralyzed, it simply means that one half of your brain, or at least one half of your motor homunculus is gone. And in that case, you will not be able to move the opposite part, contralateral part. But what happens is either the nearby areas of the brain or bilaterally opposite to the same part of the brain will take up the functions lost by this accident. And we will be able to do things. And this is very evident in the case of most of these stroke victims. After constant practice and willpower, they gain the lost capabilities. That is one. Number two, plasticity is very clearly shown in the case of your use of your brain. You don't use your brain for a long period, you lose all your capabilities. Whereas you continue using this, you slowly pick up capabilities and you become an expert in that field too. That is itself is a very simple example of your plasticity of the brain. If you ask more questions, if you do more things, you will become more and more an expert. As the saying goes, ideas are like a mustache. The more you shave, the more it grows. And the plasticity works like that. You do more things and it works, it becomes better and more expert in that field.
Perfect. Thank you, Father.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Sir, I'm Sneha, sir. Thank you for this wonderful section. Sir, I have a question which is not in this, but sir, what about the brain capacities? Does everyone have the same capacity or it differs?
That's a fantastic question. I will very simply answer this question like this. Do you have a camera in your cell phone? Do you have a camera in your cell phone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what is the pixel intensity of that phone, of that camera? Maybe some MB, some 8 MB or like that. Okay. And there will be another camera which can be of 2 MB pixel capacity. The other one can be 8 MB capacity. Both will be able to take a picture of the same object. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
And both picture will be identifiable. Okay, you are taking a picture of a mountain, and both the picture will be looking almost alike, but you will see the details are completely different. One has got much more information pushed into that, whereas the other one is very, very less. Very similarly, our brains, because of the capabilities of the brain, say for example, you are in the place of 100 billion neurons, one person may be having only 80 billion neurons. And therefore, his perception of the reality will be completely different from the perception of the reality from the other one. I mean to say, we are not all exactly the same. Everyone is different.
When we are born, sir, but when we are born, we have some neurons working. When we are trying to put our brain so conscious, it will be increasing. I heard that. Is that correct, sir?
That is almost correct. There are two ways of understanding it. Let us say there are 2 neurons. Like, do you see my hand, or I should?
Yes, sir.
Okay, in that case, fine. And supposing that these are 2 neurons, and it makes 2 connections like this. Now, this is a functioning combination. But these 2 neurons can make more connections too. Now, this is more efficient. Okay. So, with the given number of neurons, the capability depends on how much do you work with this. If you work more, it will make more connections. If you work less, it will make less connections. And therefore, your capability will be dependent on the way or the extent to which you are using it.
So that is, sir, in olden times, ancient peoples were having capacities less. Now, as the time passes, capacities increases because of this functioning.
Obviously, there is a continuous increase in the functionalities of the brain. That is why we said in the monkeys, your tongue was represented less. But in the humans, the tongue is represented more. Similarly, whichever part of our body was used more, those parts were getting more and more representation in the brain. And this is called the nature. Some part of it is already given to us by our birth. Because we are born as a human being, we have got a greater representation of this tongue and the palm. Whereas on the given nature, if you nurture it, you can definitely build more onto that. So there are 2 components. One is the given, and the other is what you made of.
Okay, sir. That is the sentence that what we get from our parents and what we work on it, both depends on that.
Both are important. Both are,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you, sir.
Complementary, yes.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Navneet Naveen, and I would like to ask something connected to brain and laughter.
Okay.
So, first of all, how are you, sir?
I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. So, the question is, this book also hypothesized that complicated networks in brain contribute to actions as simple as laughter. That is, funerals don't usually involve much laughter. For instance, if you saw an adult child of the deceased person rolling on the floor, you'd probably think that they were insane, right? But actually, this is a neurological problem and is known by the term compulsive laughter, as marked in the book. So there are a lot more theories regarding this compulsive laughter condition. What all are other better definitions and examples regarding this neurological play? Or what other broader meanings and theories can be perceived and compiled from other inventive materials, journals, which deal with the same gist, like Dale Purves' Neuroscience and related chapters from the book, Principles of Neuroscience, How does these other books and tomes evaluate compulsory laughter and other neurological governance? How do they differ from?
Okay. Actually, the question was a little long, and I do not actually claim that I have got a complete answer for all this, because the book mainly I have read is this Phantoms in the Brain, and I do not have a big comparison between the other medical or neurological books. Okay, number one. Number two, when you say laughter is a simple mechanism, actually laughter is a very complicated mechanism. And this complicated mechanism is automated by a lot of nerve centers in the brain. And that is why, do you know, there are two types of laughter. There are, if you read, there are two types of laughter. One is automatic laughter, and the other is a forced laughter. Acceptable? A forced laughter is a different one. Automatic one and a forced one are different. And that is why, whether it is a laughter or a smile, say before a photo, if you are asked to smile, your smile will not be that natural as the other one. Yes or no? And
Yes, sir.
this is because your various muscles are forced to take a shape because of the conscious order given by different face centers, different brain centers. Whereas in an automatic case, this is happening without any effort, and the laughter will be beautiful. And by the way, when you said laughter is the fundamental reason for a laughter or a smile, he says it is a sort of inability to reconcile two realities. What to say? You expect something at one place and the answer happens to be the other way around, then you tend to try to laugh. Say, for example, a rectangle with two straight lines. Initially, you have got one picture of it, and finally the answer comes in a different picture. Then the brain is not able to reconcile these two, and it ends up with a laughter. And when you say laughter, continuous laughing, one case is given in this book where this patient, he says, literally laughed to death. And that was because some of the other regions of the brain which controls, okay, now this is enough of laughing. Your trigger was there to laugh, but now to stop the trigger, the other part of the brain should act, and that trigger is lost. And therefore, this patient happened to be laughing to death because of some neurological conditions. This is all possible. So I do not know whether I have actually answered your question. Laughter is not a simple mechanism, but it's a very complicated mechanism, which is made simple by an autonomous or nervous system. I don't know whether the autonomous nervous system or some other nervous system, but it is an automated case. Therefore, we do not understand the intricacies of it. But in fact, if you really wanted to force a smile, it is complicated.
Yes, clear, sir. Thank you so much. It was such a wonderful session. Thank you.
G. Okay.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, I just wanted to ask you, how does brain function when we dream?
When we dream? Oh, that's a very, very great question. Actually, during the dreams, by the way, you have always heard people saying, hey, ഇങ്ങനത്തെ വേഷമൊന്നും കാണിക്കില്ല, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഇങ്ങനത്തെ ഓരോരോ ആളൊന്നും കാണല്ലേ, രാത്രി പേടിച്ച് സ്വപ്നം കാണുന്നു പറയാറുണ്ടോ? Heard like that?
Sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
This is because what our brain is doing always is all the information that we have already collected during this life is kept as a structure of knowledge, and whatever is coming new every day is also taken into the brain, and during the sleep time it is actually evaluating all this new information and try to make sense of this and try to put things at the right place, whether it is things that you have studied or anything that you have seen, experienced. You will try to make sense with the previous system. But when you find it difficult, okay, this is not able to be reconciling with the other one, you try to either reject it or there will be a fight of these concepts. During this time, whenever there is a highly irreconcilable things, then it is highly likely that it may slightly come to your conscious part of the brain. That appears like an experience, and that is the dream. And when you are young, there is a lot of things which are not, which are new and therefore to be reconciled. Therefore, in the childhood, you have got a lot more dreams. And during your middle ages, your dreams may be less because you already have a big structure, and whatever are coming into the structure are not anymore very much new. But if you have got really new a thing, then obviously you will be having a dream. And during the end days, you will have still more dreams because your structure will not be able to continue holding on all these things. You may have to get rid of many things. And during this process, which is to be taken out, or there may be a conflict of which is to be taken out, it may slightly come to your conscious brain, and that is the dream. As I have analyzed, I have read from this book. My opinion or my reading and understanding may be right, may not be right. I don't claim any doctrinal claim on this. Okay.
Okay, so one more question, pardon me. Like, it's nothing from the book, but something we all are curious about. Like, you have been with Dr. Kalam sir for so long. So can you please share one of the most memorable experience or an unforgettable one that totally changed you?
Actually, I always used to wonder about this man's generosity. That is what I really wanted to share right now. There were many cases where he had shown his generosity, but the most striking one was like this. One day, I was in the university and I had gone to a paper evaluation from about 9:30, 10 o'clock onwards, or even from 9 o'clock onwards. I was in the paper evaluation center. And by around 4 o'clock, I returned. And when I came back, some people said, so close to me, they said, Dr. Kalam is likely to go. And then they said there was a call from him, call to him from Chandrababu Naidu, proposing him to be the next candidate of NDA for presidenthood. I came to know about it, and I was thrilled. I was happy and sad together. Sad because he is likely to be away from me. He will be going to New Delhi. And then, after another half an hour to 1 hour, I got a call from Dr. Kalam himself. By around 6 o'clock, he called me and said, Father, there is a case like this. And then later I knew like this. It happened that by around 2 o'clock or maybe by around 10 o'clock in the morning, Chandrababu Naidu called Dr. Kalam saying or asking him whether he can be the NDA candidate. What the reply by Dr. Kalam was, can you say? Can you just imagine what was the reply of Dr. Kalam to that?
No.
Absolutely no. They said Dr. Kalam did not say an answer. He said, I need some time. I need some 2, 3, 4 hours. And what he did was, the time he needed was, he immediately contacted the Vice Chancellor of Anna University and said, I have got a call from Chandrababu Naidu like this. And my question to you is, in case I become the president and go to Delhi, already this Father George is there with me, or one student is there with me to do PhD. He has registered under me. Will I be able to continue this guidance even if I am in Delhi? This was a question he posed to the Vice Chancellor. And the Vice Chancellor was aghast. Generally, when an offer like this is coming, These people will not think about the people who have registered under him for PhD or anything else. They will say, I'm ready. But Dr. Kalam is saying whether this is possible or not. And as for the Vice Chancellor there, he was also actually thrilled to have a presidential candidate under him. And he immediately said, whatever possible we will do, you do not be worry about this continuing this guiding of the PhD. We will do arrangements. And only after that word from the Vice Chancellor did Dr. Kalam say a word or reply to Chandrababu Naidu. This is greatness. I say this because I have heard about many other people, including some of our priests. One bishop, he was guiding the PhD of some of the other priests, and this bishop was selected to be or asked to be a cardinal, and then he was asked to go to Rome. He immediately obliged and said, okay, I'm coming. He did not say a word to the candidates who was doing PhD under him. A bishop did like that, whereas Dr. Kalam did the other way around. When a president post was offered to him. This is greatness, simply greatness.
Okay, thank you, sir.
G. Okay.
So I hope there is no further questions.
Okay,
now
fine.
we are concluding the session.
Yes.
Now we are concluding the session. I thank Dr. George Athappilly for teaching us on the functioning of brain and sharing his experience with Dr. Kalam with us. On behalf of the department, I wholeheartedly thank you, sir, for taking out your valuable time and spending with us. It was indeed a great pleasure to interact with you. I once again thank you, sir. I thank respected head of the department, Dr. Salil Verma, and all the professors for their never-ending support to this initiative. I thank all the students and other participants who joined us today. We hope to meet you all in the coming sessions. Thank you.
Okay, now. Exit.
Yes, brother, thank you.